said, Mr. Wolfe, can you please talk more slowly? I'm trying to write this all down. And so, being a smartass, of course, I said, well, kid, you better learn to write faster if you want to be a success in the fashion business. I guess he learned to write faster because that kid was Marc Jacobs. So I hope the next Marc Jacobs is sitting out there among you today. Okay, having said that, let's start looking at what I do as I go around the world talking to designers and manufacturers and retailers and students. It's my job to look ahead, to play leapfrog from where we're at and explain what's going to happen and give you my opinion about why I think it's going to happen. You're allowed to disagree, and you're also allowed to ask questions, and when I'm finished, I hope there will be a few questions. Let's leap ahead to spring-summer 2006. And always, I think, when you are looking at fashion, you have to avoid tunnel vision. So many people in the fashion industry think only about their own little world, their own little responsibilities. I think you have to study fashion history. And in order to understand where fashion is now, we have to think how it got there. Well, we have lived through the decline and fall of fashion, I think, and it's bottomed out. We can blame the men of the world for a lot of this, because men naturally like to be comfortable and kind of scruffy, let's be honest. And men really were responsible for the dressing down of fashion, which has happened for the last 20 years. Here's a little bit of fashion history right in front of you. Starting on the left, that's James Dean. You may recognize him. And he just looks kind of cool today. When he looked like that in the 1950s, it was revolutionary. People were alarmed that he was so dressed down. And next to him is Marlon Brando in the movie The Wild Ones. That's when Marlon Brando was so thin and living that he could actually blast his way into a black leather biker jacket. And so on, you know, and it just got grungier and grungier, and Kurt Cobain, and finally there at the bottom, there's, you know, that former student, Marc Jacobs. He's had his hair cut, but I don't think he's washed it. So what happened to women's wear? While men were dressing down and becoming first casual Friday, then grungy, then, you know, totally 24/7 casual wear. Well, women were dressing up, but in a downward spiral. Women kind of fell from grace. They started out as Grace Kelly, and they ended up absolutely without any grace at all, as fashion became more and more vulgar, more and more obvious, more and more sexy, and scruffy casual wear for women too. Well, now we've bottomed out. Paris Hilton represents the rock bottom, I think. I don't know how you feel about Paris, but I wish she would get on a bus and go away. But she is, you know, the girl du jour, and that means she won't be here tomorrow. Isn't that nice? This whole attitude is now totally out of style. So what's happening? Well, we're having a new, again, fashion uplift. And it's a little bit uptight, you know, and that's a little worrying, but I think we'll nuance that as we go forward. And everybody's having kind of a makeover, getting more polished, more pulled together. Even Laura Bush has managed to pull herself together. And I don't know if you watched television over the weekend, but I was astonished that even Camilla managed to look pretty good for her wedding to Charles. I don't know how you felt about that, or even if you cared or watched, but I did. That's part of my job. Whenever I'm projecting ideas forward, I have to think about what's going on in fashion now, of course, but more importantly, I try to think about the driving forces. What's changing fashion? Because fashion is always a reflection of the society that wears it. So if we understand how we as a society are changing, then we can understand how fashion changes. I'm going to talk to you about 3 driving forces that I think are going to be responsible for the fashion trends of spring-summer 2006. Number 1 is reassurance. I think we're all kind of nervous, and we would like reassurance. Fashion will help us express that. Reality? Who needs it? It's no fun, no thank you. So we're still going to fantasize a lot. And we're going to begin to re-examine some eternal truths about design and fashion that are going to help us with this return to a more uplifting kind of fashion. Let's talk first about the driving force number 1, reassurance. That means we're going to see a return to a less challenging style. Now, these are the driving forces, and from them we can extrapolate various fashion trends. And now I am the trend guy, so it's my job to think of cute names for a lot of these trends, but Here are some of the trends that I think will come from our need for reassurance. We're going to have a color close-up. We're going to encore elite elegance. We're going to look for that which is authentic, because that will reassure us. First of all, let's have a close-up on color, a tighter focus on key fashion shades. Oh, there's still going to be lots and lots of color. We're in a big color revival time. But what's hot? Well, we've gone over the rainbow, really, and that's pretty exciting. I mean, I can notice a big change when I come to speak to groups like you, because I look out and I see so much color. You're all wearing color. And that isn't the way it was when I came here, 8 years ago, and Alice introduced me, and we looked out and there was a sea of black. Black, 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 and more black. Well, black lasted for about 20 years in fashion. I think that's long enough. And then we discovered color, and everything became color. Not just fashion, not just your trainers, but your iPods. Everything became very, very colorful. Surprisingly enough, fashion was the last sector of the design community to rediscover color. Home furnishing, cars, tabletop, everyone discovered color before fashion finally jumped on the bandwagon. And now it's kind of overdoing it. Pink, 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 pink. People keep saying, well, when is pink going to go out of style? It's never going to go out of style, but it's going to stop being the #1 performing color, of course. What's so great about pink? Well, everybody looks good in pink. Even Barbara Cartland up there. I don't know if you recognize her. She isn't the oldest woman on the earth anymore because she's dead. But she was the oldest woman when she was alive, and she always wore pink. She wrote those kind of soppy, sugary romance novels, in case you wonder who she is. Everybody else you can probably recognize. Well, what happens as we start slowly moving away? The thing we have to remember about color today, because it's a new game for most consumers, is that it moves more slowly than it ever did before. And so, what's going to replace pink? Well, it's going to take a while, but watch out for lavender to start edging its way in. All sorts of lavender, pink, mauve shades. And lavender is the segue to where we're going to be in 2006. We're going to be submerged in blue. Shades, every shade of blue imaginable. You probably can't read the fine print on some of these, but each one of these little bullets is a different shade of blue. Côte d'Azur blue, Caribbean blue, navy blazer blue, blueberry blue, high tide blue, so on and so on and so on, blue ribbon blue. Okay, that's too many colors. What do you need? Well, the close-up on color is aquatic blue. It's starting to perform right now. People who are fashion sensitive have already bought something in swimming pool blue or turquoise blue, and they look good. And the reason I'm not surprised at all is that last summer on the French Riviera, all the trendy people were wearing turquoise or swimming pool blue, aquatic blues. There's something magical about a little town on the Riviera called Saint-Tropez, because every summer the smart people from Paris go there, and the American fashion industry goes there to see what they're wearing. And whatever they're wearing is what is copied for America the next year. So that's one forecast that's real easy to come up with. And last year they were all wearing aquatic blues. There's a wonderful quote from Narciso Rodriguez in Vogue there. He said, "There's something uplifting about the color blue. It just sends such a positive message." And when you can see women as diverse as Laura Bush and J.Lo both looking good in these aquatic blues, you know you're on to a winner. But it can't be just a one-color season, of course. We're seeing this beginning of the blue cycle influence what's happening to green. Green has been performing surprisingly well. It's a hard sell, especially yellowed greens, which have been a kind of anti-fashion, rebellious color that's performed very, very well. Well, that yellow is now softening, and more blue is being added to the green. There will be a lot of teal this fall, and then we'll see it move into a blue-green, lagoon kind of green for spring. And surprisingly enough, finally, after years of hearing that yellow was going to be great, I think for spring '06, yellow is finally going to be great. It's a very hard color to wear with many skin tones, so there are going to be lots of variations on colors. The softer yellows will sell best, of course. But Watch out for a little backlash, because there's been so much excitement about color, and the people who get there first have been wearing color for several years already, so they're ready to explore a bit. And that exploration will lead to monochromatic black and white combinations. Hopefully not just black head to toe, although many designers are pushing that. I think they're wrong. I think the black needs to be lightened up with white. So watch out for a color backlash movement. It will be a lot of black and white. So there's our color close-up. The second trend we can get from this need for reassurance is what I call an encore of elite elegance, a return to polished perfection. Does it mean that dressed-down grunge is a goner at last? Well, yes, as far as fashion's cutting edge is concerned, but that does not mean that grunge bands will not continue to look the way they do now. It does not mean that young fashion rebels and students will not continue to be scruffy. That's part of the process, the passage of growing up. But it will no longer be a major fashion influence. This represents the way fashion is going to look. More polished, well-groomed, pulled together, very grown up. And these are not grown-up people you're looking at here. These are young models, of course. And these are not old pictures either. These are brand new pictures from the newest Armani ad campaign, from the newest Canali suit campaign. And I think it looks refreshing, it looks exciting, it looks cool and sexy in a brand new way. I mean, these are really attractive people that you might want to, have dinner with or go to bed with. Well, you're grown-ups, come on, okay? What this means in terms of fashion is that we're going to have a different fashion ideal. Instead of fashion looking like it's for hookers, it's now going to look like it's for ladies again. Very grown-up, and this does not mean that these are clothes that are going to make you look older when you wear them. You're still going to look young, so you can have young makeup and young hair and young accessories. Menswear, too, is growing up, and there is a big movement in menswear talking about the return of the suit. Well, I don't think it's the return of the suit. The suit never went away for lots of men. But when I could have shown you these menswear pictures any season, forever. But when I tell you that these clothes are by Marc Jacobs, Donatella Versace, and Giorgio Armani, then you'll get the idea that the cutting-edge people are rediscovering this well-groomed look. If you want to zero it down to how to make money, which is what people always ask me to do, one thing means that this is the big return of the jacket. The jacket is already starting to perform very, very well. It's shapely, it's tiny. In the menswear industry, it's getting much, much more body conscious. In the women's wear industry, it's unlined and often like a blouse. The accessories that are elegant are not the kind of accessories we've been having so much fun with lately. These are things without the bells and whistles and sequins. These are tailored, calm, luxurious, and very expensive looking. Classic good taste. That leads us to another trend, a yearning for authentic, real things. Labels and items without a spin. These are brands you can count on. Louis Vuitton, Lilly Pulitzer, Chanel, even Walt Disney. They've been around, of course, and successful, but recently we've said they have to be spin-doctored, they have to be twisted a bit to make them exciting. Well, now we don't want that anymore. We want the real thing, timeless elegance. This is probably one of the most exciting things that happened in fashion in the last year. A marriage. Scoop, the incredibly right-on chain of boutiques, went to J. Crew, who's also hot, by the way, and asked J. Crew to make a special line of shirts for men and blouses for women that would be exclusive to the Scoop shops. Not the typical J. Crew stuff, but in cooler colors and more expensive fabrics. And J. Crew did that. And so this new label was born, J. Crew for Scoop. I think you're going to be seeing more and more of these synergistic marriages of authentic, traditional brands with cool, aware companies. This is what the new casual wear will look like. Clean, pressed, polished, pulled together, a little bit intentionally uptight, and that's what gives it its edge. What about color? Well, is anything more authentic than red, white, and blue? And because it's America, of course, the blue is denim. Let's move on to the second driving force. This one won't be as challenging for you to understand because this is where we're at right now. And it's not going to go away, but it's going to lose its edge. Our need for escape and denial. Reality, no thanks. So the trends we have to look at are celebrity, which is its saturation point now, luxury, it's becoming a deluxe democracy, retro, we can't escape it, it seems, and we're still going on fantasy trips. So this is kind of juicy, gutsy, fun stuff. Oh God, here she is again. Do you ever feel you're being stalked by Paris Hilton? I feel she's stalking me. I don't know. Every time I look at television or look at a magazine, there is Paris Hilton. I can't believe it. And the other day I was at a restaurant down in Soho, and guess who was there? Paris Hilton. She's a little drunk. It wasn't a pretty sight. Okay. Hey, I tell it like it is. This is escapism Hollywood style. That's, here's a star, there's a star. Everywhere, everybody's a star. Does it always work? Well, it has up till now, but it's starting to malfunction. Famous faces are getting a little too familiar, I think. On the left there, from the Tommy Hilfiger ad campaign, who ever thought that David Bowie and Iman could sell Tommy Hilfiger to the general public? It didn't work. The ads are being pulled. The clothes failed at department store level and are now being moved, according to Hilfiger's company, into stand-alone special stores. That means no sale. I thought this ad campaign was so weird because every time I saw this picture, I'd look at that earring and think it was a Target ad. So I think whoever was the stylist should have been fired. How about Donald Trump, the fragrance? Do you want to smell like Donald Trump? It's kind of frightening. Now, if it were Donald Trump, the hairspray, I would understand that. And of course, we have Donald Trump suits are selling very, very well. By the way, Donald Trump neckties are selling very, very well. And of course, it wasn't just Donald. We also had to put up with Mrs. Trump, the new Mrs. Trump. Can we talk? Was that the ugliest wedding dress you have ever seen in your life? Okay, we all agree. Good. Do you care? How much do you care? Well, I care enough to buy these magazines all the time. I don't know about you. They're great airplane and train reads. Okay, so this is not the world's greatest tragedy. The media insinuated it was, but every once in a while there are reminders that remind us that when we are playing the celebrity game, it is just for the fun of it. Don't take it so seriously because there are serious things going on in the world. Oh, we need icons, don't we? It seems that everybody is an icon these days. Certainly Sarah Jessica Parker had her moment in the spotlight, and she's not leaving willingly, believe me. She's launching a brand new fragrance in a minute, and I know a secret. I know what the dress is like for the ad campaign, and I'm not supposed to tell a soul, so I'm going to tell you. She appeared at Oscar de la Renta's design studio with a whole bunch of photographs of Marilyn Monroe, and so she wanted a Marilyn Monroe dress, strapless with sort of tools zooshing out at the bottom, so watch for the picture. It's going to be great. But, she's kind of had her moment. The series is now, in syndication and network, so we are desperate for new fashion icons. And they're here. Desperate Housewives. Do you all watch it? I'm addicted to it. I just love it. Okay. What is so cool about them is they aren't kids. And that is very significant in terms of what's going on in fashion now, because fashion is finally waking up to the fact that people over 16 buy clothes, and that's a revolution. Don't get me wrong, we're still going to have this there she is again. You see what I mean about her stalking me? We're still going to have this kind of stuff because there are always going to be people like Paris Hilton who have no taste, and they need clothes, and they need accessories. So vulgar, bad taste will shrink back to the people who always have vulgar, bad taste. What about luxury? Well, it's becoming a democracy. Luxury for all. But if it's mass, is it status? Here's King Karl Lagerfeld, really the guy who's responsible for making luxury available to all with his wonderful, wonderful H&M promotion last year. I hope you were all aware of that because, boy, it was historic in terms of fashion. He was signed by H&M, the giant fast fashion cheapy chain, to do a special collection. And they did it brilliantly. November 19th, that was the day that shall go down in fashion history. All over the world, this little capsule collection by Karl Lagerfeld, the world's most expensive high fashion designer, appeared at some of the cheapest fashion stores in the world, 500 of them. And if you were aware, you know what happened. all hell broke loose on 34th Street, on Fifth Avenue, everywhere, all over the world where there was an H&M store. People were literally fighting over these clothes. I happened to be in Madrid in Spain on the day the H&M merchandise hit, so I, of course, hot-footed it down to the H&M store in Madrid, and there the same thing was going on. People were fighting over the clothes. The thing that was surprising is the number of men who were there, because he did a few little menswear items, and the Latin men really dug what he did, and they were fighting over the sweaters and tearing the shirts out of each other's hands and stuff. It was so exciting. Why did it work so well? Well, for one thing, H&M spent so much money making sure we all knew about it, and that is key. They have very deep pockets, so they had a lot of advertising on television, on billboards, on bus shelters. You saw it everywhere. Karl Lagerfeld, networked with all the fashion editors in the world, so boy, everybody knew this. And that was important. But what was really important is that when you got to the store, the stuff looked like Karl Lagerfeld had designed it. They did not water it down the way Target waters down Isaac Mizrahi. It really looked special. So it was made out of crap material and badly made. Didn't matter. You got your Karl Lagerfeld thing for $50. So you're going to see more and more of that kind of movement going on. And we're good at that. After all, we've made denim into a luxury product, haven't we? Premium denim. Everybody is doing it now. Denim jeans used to be the cheapest thing you could buy. That's why everybody liked them so much, and now they're $500. Go figure. Of course, there is a customer who loves playing this game, who fights and claws to be on a waiting list so she can get the in Chanel bag or the in Dior bag or the in Vuitton bag, and that will go on, and they will go on producing these status items just for the fun of it. Let's talk about the retro rehash that fashion just can't seem to stop having. I remember we couldn't wait for the millennium, for the 21st century, and the minute it started, we turned our backs on it and started dressing like any time but now. What's new about retro? Nothing. One reason we love retro is we love the movies, don't we? Often a retro trend comes from a retro movie. And here, let's start on the far right. Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's. If you haven't seen that movie and you think you want to be in the fashion industry, get it. It's like Fashion History 101. You got to see Breakfast at Tiffany's. You got to see Funny Face. You got to see The Women. See those three movies, and it's equal to a whole course here at FIT. You'll learn taste. In the center, that's Faye Dunaway in the movie Bonnie and Clyde, and I was around then, and I remember what happened. Skirts in Europe had gotten long. This was the days of the mini. America refused to wear longer skirts, and it was very bad for business. There was this big controversy going on. Well, they didn't like the long skirts in America because they thought they weren't sexy. But the minute they saw Faye Dunaway in these kind of retro 30s longer hems, they got the message. It was sexy, and skirts got longer in America. Over here on the left, that's Charlie Chaplin, of course, and the reason I'm showing you him is he is the inspiration for Giorgio Armani's latest silhouette for men. Tiny little shrunken jacket and baggy trousers. And that same silhouette will move over into women's wear by 2006. Bet your bottom dollar. Here's how it works. There will be a great movie, like The Aviator. I don't know if you saw that or not, but Sandy Powell won the Academy Award for her costumes. They are dynamite. They're not authentic. They are inspired by the 30s and 40s, the time when Howard Hughes was a young man. On the right, that's Cate Blanchett as Katharine Hepburn. Clothes is stunning. On the left, Kate Beckinsale as Ava Gardner. I loved that chevron stripe treatment in those colors. I think I wasn't the only one who loved it. Marc Jacobs created this dress, which I think certainly was inspired by that one. Sometimes the feeling that's in the air inspires a lot of designers to focus in on one retro period, and I think a lot of designers right now are thinking about Victoriana because we've really had enough of Paris Hilton and vulgarity, and we want something sweet and innocent, and so we naturally start thinking about those lacy, eyelet, frilly Victorian underwear looks. Sometimes a retro reference will help us move fashion forward, because right now silhouette is changing and moving away from the body, and fuller skirts are the first successful item in this change, and people find it hard to understand this kind of change. So if we can say, oh, it's like 1950s style, like the new look, then they get the message and go with it. And you can bet your bottom dollar that if skirts are full, the next thing that will happen is we're going to start seeing fuller pants with tighter tops. Sometimes these retro ideas come to us from the strangest sources. Here, there's a wonderful little book, you may have seen it, called Interior Desecrations. It's about the ugly interior decoration of the 1970s, and it was known as the decade that taste forgot. I think that might be a little strong, but these kind of interiors, most of us look at them and just go, ah. Well, Miuccia Prada didn't. Miuccia Prada looked at them and thought, ooh, cool. And she was inspired to do a whole collection for Miu Miu based on the ugly wallpaper and carpeting from the 1970s. So when you're thinking retro and your own creative juices are flowing, try to think of something that hasn't been done. Search out some little retro idea from the past and turn it into fashion for the future. Our need to escape means that fashion is still wandering around the world, ripping off the natives and stealing great ideas from any place but here. Where will fashion go next? Well, right now, fashion is going to Africa. Out of Africa come all kinds of wonderful prints, all kinds of simple, soft silhouettes that are very, very comfortable. Out of Africa also come native arts and crafts that are very, very inspirational. This is not a new idea. We have been around the world so many times in terms of fashion. On the left, those dresses are from an early Yves Saint Laurent collection when he did his interpretation of African arts and crafts. Well, every few years we seem to head back to the West, and the cowboy thing comes back into fashion. So we've got pioneer sharpshooters and rodeo queens back again. And if we've got the cowboys, the Indians cannot be far behind. Do you recognize the picture in the middle? Yeah, that's Cher. And so long ago, she actually looks like a human being, doesn't she? I mean, that shows you how old that picture is. How do we commercialize cowboys and Indians? Because not many people really want to dress that extreme. Well, it's kind of a country and Western simplicity, naive, down on the farm, Midwestern simple life kind of look, and that means chambray, that means little floral prints, that means a bit of eyelet. There are simple ways that you translate this into commercial viability. And some people just don't want to grow up. They don't want to escape their childhood. So you're finding clothes that look like they should be worn by children, but they're worn by very, very sophisticated people like women who shop at Dior. The third driving force is the one that is the most forward-looking, the one that's just beginning now. So put this in the back of your mind, let it simmer, and watch it come to fruition. It's a re-examination, looking closely, more closely, at some ideas that have been around and are ripe again for re-examination. Natural beauty, pure design, and sublime simplicity. Natural beauty is a little expression, a little backlash that is anti-technology. It provides us a respite from our modern man-made environment. Everything but everything today is moving quickly into more and more technological advancement, and we like that, we need it, we certainly embrace it, but boy, it's exhausting sometimes. Yesterday, I just got a new CD player, and I took it home. It took me hours to wire it, and I did it all wrong, and it doesn't play music, and this is irritating, and so we have these challenges all the time. So that's one reason that we are all feeling the urge to look at nature more closely. That's one reason why the exhibition that the Met had of wild, untamed animal prints throughout fashion history was so successful, because they are very, very much a part of why we're going back to nature at the moment, rediscovering leopard as if leopard ever goes away. It's going to be very, very chic again. There we have it from Roberto Cavalli on the left, Ava Gardner, a pin-up in the middle, and on the right, a picture I snapped of a woman on the street wearing her badly fitted leopard jacket and her skin-tight leopard jeans with the turned-up cuffs, but she feels great. Bless her. And if we have leopard stripes, of course, leopard spots, of course we have stripes, zebras, and tigers. That makes sense. What it really means is not those two particular prints. It means that we are becoming obsessed with natural textures and natural colors. You can look for inspiration everywhere in nature. Certainly there are a lot of feathers around. Feathers are too expensive and impractical, but think about feathers as an inspiration for prints. Think about feathers as an inspiration for color combinations. All the wonderful color combination that naturally occurs in a peacock feather is a great way to think of inspiration for fashion. The colors are the incoming colors, golden neutrals. Watch out for golden neutrals going forward. And of course, nature means flowers. It's a knee-jerk reaction. Springtime means floral prints. The ones that are going to be the most exciting going forward are the ones that will look the most natural, or like carefully drawn botanical drawings. The second trend to come from this is pure design, where form follows not function, but art. It's creating just for the sake of creating something beautiful. Certainly, pure design is an art form. The picture on the left is an ad from an automotive magazine, and I'd like to read you what it says. The fashion industry is so inspiring because it's close to the pulse of what's current and moving forward. Wrong. Not at the moment, anyway. I think fashion is stuck in an over-embellished, over-decorative, sexy mode, and we're trying hard to break free. Technology has already broken free. Your clothes should be as modern as your cell phone, and they're not. Architecture is certainly there. We're living in a world that looks like the future already. Fashion is trying to catch up a little bit with shapes that are beginning to move away from the body, poofs and balloons and tears, swing shapes. Some of the materials that we're using for fashion have very, very modern connotations and allow us to experiment more with design. You're going to continue to see more and more metallics and reflectives and strange materials used for garments. The final trend is the one that is my favorite at the moment. That means it's probably 3 years away from happening, so don't get too nervous. It's all about sublime simplicity. It's time to downsize, divest, scale down. There's a very, very important book, not a fashion book, but if you're going to be in fashion, you have to be interested in everything. And this new book is called American Mania, When More Is Not Enough. It's about consumerism, and it is about the fact that we are addicted to acquisitions. I didn't know this until I read the book, but shopping and buying and acquiring releases the same endorphins in us that falling in love produces. So if you are a shopaholic, it's chemical. But I think fashion is going to help us kick our current obsession. It's happening all around us. This is kind of, what most people's home environment looks like at the moment. Mine is even worse, I have to tell you, because I live in a house that does not have a surface, I swear to God, that is not printed or patterned. I was obsessed with this. I did this house 10 years ago. It's like a nightmare, People have told me it looks like, Ralph Lauren walked in and exploded, It's kind of like this. And most people's environments look like this because fashion has let us down. We love to shop. We have to buy. And fashion has not been exciting enough lately, so we've been buying stuff for our home. It's why, Pottery Barn and Crate and Barrel are so explosive. Every time you go shopping, you come back with, something for your house. Well, everybody's house is full now. So what happens when you're in overkill? A sudden purge. Doesn't this look wonderful? I keep thinking, well, if my house looked like this, I'd be in control. So, what about fashion? The same thing applies. Okay, so this isn't a real fashion picture, but John Galliano could have designed this. This is actually Carmen Miranda, one of my favorite old movie stars, and her costumes always look like this. Well, and this is what Paris haute couture looks like a lot of the time these days. Too much too much. Wouldn't it be more beautiful to look like that? Suddenly it's like a breath of fresh air. This is what fashion is about right now. Don't get me wrong, we are not going to leave this overnight. Some people are never going to leave this. But we've pushed the envelope so far that we are now licking it. It's too much. It's time to start reducing, cleaning up. And this is where we will go next. Only a couple designers in the world are doing it right now. We're very lucky to be in America because I think the designer who's going to be the next great designer is here, working, has been for the last 5 years, Ralph Rucci. He doesn't get great press, not yet. Not many people understand what he's doing because he is already expressing this trend toward sublime simplicity. So be aware of him. Watch his career soar. Or somebody else come along and do exactly what he's doing and steal his thunders. That's part of what's fun about watching fashion, because you can predict it to a point, but there are always surprise elements. And I love the surprise. That's what keeps me interested in my job every single day. And that's what makes me excited about looking at the big picture for spring 2006 and ahead. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you today. I don't know if I'll be able to see you, but if anybody has any questions, you can yell. Any questions? Don't be shy. I'm sure one question that's going to be asked is, do we have interns? Okay, just let me take this question first. Do we have interns at my company? Yes, we do, and you can call the company and talk to the human resources person. Okay. Absolutely. The question is about designers influencing each other, and they certainly do. It's like any other industry. There are leaders and there are followers, and there is nothing wrong with following because it's really an industry. It's really a commercial endeavor, and the trick is to get the timing right. And there are some designers whose customers want to be the first in the world to wear something or express something, and then there's a fashion food chain. And so there's no sin in looking at the leader. The trick is look at the leader and get inspired, interpret the ideas, don't just knock them off. Next? Yes. It would die. Yes, I honestly do. Sometimes I get drunk with power, I have to be honest with you. But I think and there are several people like me. I mean, I'm not the only person in the world who does this. There are probably about 10 forecasters working in the world right now, which is very few. But I think what we do is help focus the sort of second and third tier of fashion. I think we help companies not lose money, which is really what my job is. I always tell people that my job spec is surprise remover, because whenever a company is taken by surprise that something is happening in fashion, they lose money. So, and fashion forecasting has changed a lot. When I started in my career, late in the 60s, early in the 70s, yes, I'm that old. I'm 64, in case you want to know. My clients were at designer level. My clients, when I first started out, Ralph Lauren was a client, Calvin Klein was a client, Gianni Versace was a client. They were at that level because what we were producing then as forecasts were very creative ideas. Well, the world changed a lot, and people lower down the food chain wanted to become more and more fashion conscious and present more and more fashionable goods, and they had a lot of money, to be honest with you. So now my clients include Walmart and JCPenney, as well as Nordstrom and Saks Fifth Avenue. But so that's how it's changed. But I think it's our job to move it along and focus it. So I think fashion would probably be the same, but it wouldn't be as efficient. I think the woman who wants to spend $100 on a dress might have become aware that green is the great color, but she'd never find a green dress for $100 for a couple years. Now she can find it instantly. Yes? Right. Okay. The question is how do I figure out what's going to be next? I think I'm just naturally curious, and I think that's really what you have to have in the fashion business. You have to be curious about the aspects of life and the human condition. I mean, like riding the subway. You know, I work 24 hours a day because I can't turn it off. Every time I see anybody walk in front of me, I think, why are they wearing that? Where did they get the idea that that's the way they should express themselves? And so I'm insatiable in terms of trying to understand that process. And when you start thinking that way, then you think, well, what television show was she watching? What book was she reading? Is she feeling depressed? Is she feeling happy? Is she poor? Is she rich? So I think it's paying attention to a lot of things. I certainly, pay attention to fashion big time. I look at all the fashion magazines. I watch a lot of fashion TV. But I also read a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with fashion. I read Time magazine cover to cover every week, and I'm bored a lot of the time by it. But it keeps adding to my information store so that I'm able to recognize the next big thing. When I go to the French Riviera every summer, it's interesting because a lot of fashion forecasters and fashion people are there, and I'm always interested in what everybody else is reporting, of course, and it seems to me that it's my job to look at what the 2 or 3 interesting people are wearing, not what most of the people are wearing. So you have to fine-tune your awareness so you spot it first, you recognize it first. Yes. Wrong. No, I think the test is, it's always interesting for me because I could do that up to a point. I could make it happen. It could be in the stores, but where it has to really happen is that the customer has to buy it. Coco Chanel said a lot of great stuff, and one thing she said was, something doesn't become fashion until people wear it. And fashion predictions can happen. I can talk to a fiber company and tell them, what to do, and they can do it. And then I can tell designers, oh, this is the fabric you should buy. And then I can tell the stores, this is the design you should buy. And so I honestly could, kind of force an issue all the way down to the point where it lays an egg in a store. And then, if that happened a lot, I wouldn't be standing here today. Yes. Absolutely. I think fashion's always a reaction to what's going on in the world, and I think all the cheap, flashy, trashy stuff is there because we were frightened about what's going on in the world and we wanted to escape. I think the simplicity is coming from the fact that we're now getting used to that, and we think this is how the world is always going to be, and we don't have to escape so much anymore. We don't have to pretend to be Paris Hilton. We can be calmer about it because we've been able to cope with it. It's like, we coped with 9/11, we've coped with, the war in the Middle East, we've coped with George Bush. So if we cope with that, we can cope with anything. And I think that means we don't have to so often dress in a fantasy. We can be real, and not reality TV real, but real. Anybody else? Oh, yes, in the dark. I'm sorry. Are my predictions ever wrong or off? Do you want me to confess? Of course. Sometimes my timing, the older I get, the better I get, to be honest with you, which is the only plus of getting old. And Oscar de la Renta once said something to me that I thought was so good. I'm sorry to name drop, but he said, we all know where fashion's going. It can only go in and out, or up and down, or light and dark. He said, we all know. He said, the trick is, when is it going to do that? So it's really all about timing. And I think the more experience you have, the better you become at timing. And certainly now, for me, it's very, very important when I'm dealing with, on a one-to-one basis with the client, to understand exactly where their customer is at. because there is no more mainstream, and that has changed things dramatically. It used to be easy because if you knew where the fashion mainstream was at, then you could say, all right, you're ahead of the mainstream, you're behind the mainstream, you're in the mainstream. But now the mainstream doesn't exist anymore. There are like 1,000 little streams, and so you have to know where each individual company is at in order to help them adjust their timing. Because I can say, all right, sky blue pink is going to be the great fashion color next year. But if you are a directional person, you should have done it already. And if you're a volume person, you shouldn't do it next year. You should wait another year to do it when it really is going to cash in. So it's really about timing. And yes, my timing was often wrong at the beginning, but it's getting better. Yes? I think we're going to have large, oversized things that aren't as busy, because I think at first it's going to be hard for people to move to simplicity because they become such junkies, and so I think they're going to want a lot more accessories, but they're going to be wearing simpler clothes with jazzy accessories, and then the accessories will start to calm down too. But we're probably talking a 5-year cycle here. Yes, way in the back. I think they are doing a combination. I don't think any of the big designers work in isolation anymore because they all have studios and they all buy a lot of materials to help get everyone in their studio on the same wavelength. I remember Calvin Klein once. I asked him, why he was buying my forecast, and he said because he wanted to know what everybody was going to be doing, so he could be sure to be doing something else. And that was a good answer.